Hi there, everyone. Welcome. Please type into the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. I'm Rachel Goldberg. I'm happy to welcome you to the next edition of Global Reiki Webinars. So today is going to be really exciting. I'm already excited because I've been watching the chat as you're coming in and introducing yourselves, telling us where you're from. And I think that this is our most really truly global experience that we've hosted live so far. Yay, I'm glad you guys can hear me. Hi, Jana. Hi, Carlos. Hi, Jenny. Good to have you all here. But we've got more continents represented than we have yet. We've got representation from New York, Moscow, Washington, Arizona, the UK, Netherlands, Galilee, and Israel, Holland, Ukraine. We've got Grace here in Jamaica. That's awesome. Colombia, Kazakhstan, Denmark, Germany, Russia, Canada, Maryland, Paris, New Mexico, Eugene, Oregon, California, Latvia, yeah, and I'm here in Chicago. So really exciting. If you know any Reiki people in anywhere on the African continent, more representation from Asian countries and South America. I know that our community exists out there. Please send this replay when you get it tomorrow, or when, you know, if you found us online, share it with your people far and wide. This is really exciting to see how crazy it is. Oh, and we've got a Rachel in Jerusalem. I see a comment about having issues with audio, or if your screen freezes up. The best thing to do if you run into technical errors while we do this broadcast is to refresh your web browser. Just hit the refresh button. It may pause for a minute, but it will bring you back to where we are in the live stream. So if you run into any kinds of issues, that's my main suggestion. Also, throughout the broadcast, I will be in the chat live. So I'll be, of course, receiving the transmission along with all of you while Phyllis is speaking to us and leading us in a little bit of a meditation that we get to experience together today. And if you have questions, I'll be right down there. And yeah, I'm seeing, you know, British Columbia, I see Carol. Yay, so glad that you're all here. And now I'm going to introduce our topic and Phyllis to begin our program today. Our topic is the future of Reiki, which is very exciting. We've had some really wonderful questions come in from you in advance that Phyllis will be addressing later today. But Phyllis is also going to be going over where we've been as a global community or society and where we're going. Yeah, we're going to wrap up. This is our actual first year of Global Reiki Webinars, and we will be continuing into 2016. And we'll have more information for you about upcoming events and schedules and opportunities for you to engage online even more intimately with our teacher, Phyllis. So without further ado, let's begin today's program. Here is Usui Shiki Ryoho, lineage bearer, many of our friend and teacher, student and practitioner of Reiki for many years, Phyllis Furumoto. Ooh. There you go. Yeah.
Hello, hello. I'm here in my home in Arizona. And of course, at the last minute, I really wanted to put on a kind of special presentation for you because a dear friend and Reiki master from Sao Paulo, Brazil, wrote this song years and years and years ago for a gathering. And it's been a kind of theme song for me for the webinar. And I wanted to be able for you to hear it, but technology being as it may, I couldn't get it together. But I did get together a slideshow, which I hope I can do. The song, though, goes like this, so you can kind of feel it as you see the slideshow. Let me just see if I can do the slideshow. This is we just tried to do this at the very, at the very end. So let me see, there we go. So I'm assuming that you can see the slideshow, and the song goes like this. Many lands, many hands, many candles, one fire, one spirit. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I totally messed up because I've listened to it so much today. So many lands, many hands, many candles. And I just think about all of us in the last couple of weeks or so, lighting candles for many, many different reasons, joining our hearts with each other, and being more aware that there are people all over the world practicing Reiki, lighting candles, putting their hands on themselves or others in this practice we call Reiki. So right now, I'd like for you to put your hands on yourself somewhere, wherever is comfortable for you, and allow the energy to flow. And be aware of your breathing. Let us touch and experience our own spirit. The flame that burns inside of us. And our instinct to share the spirit. Our wanting to reach out with our hands. Our awareness that the world is really at our fingertips. If you can, I'd like for you to just take a few moments to remember this year, 2015. Perhaps some of you just came into Reiki in 2015. Welcome to the path. And for others of you, you've been walking on this path of Reiki for many, many years. What did 2015 bring to you? And now, through this connection that somehow works with no physical lines, nothing we can see anyway, connecting us together in this medium we call the internet. Stretch your arms out, full of Reiki, with your eyes a bit closed softly. Imagine us holding hands. They say that whatever you can imagine is real. Feel the energy in our hands. Spirit lights connecting all over the world. What is it that we have to offer? Where are we going in 2016? What can we do to prepare? One spirit, one fire, one circle. And now just gently release those hands that you're holding and bring your hands back to you. Thank you. Thank you. Let us take a few seconds to come back a little bit, anyway, to where we are in our homes, or together maybe in someone else's home. And let's explore where we've been and where we're going to. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I'm really deep in Reiki space now. I hope I can talk. You know, whenever the end of the year comes for me, I always think about 1979. And during this time of year in 1979, I was thinking to myself, well, I wonder if everyone will ridicule me when I talk about Reiki. I wonder if it's safe to give people a treatment. I wonder if this is real. And a couple of years later, after my grandmother died and I had more experience, at the end of the year, I would say, well, this has really been amazing. Like, Reiki must be real because I'm experiencing all these things. But what about in 10 years? Like, what will I be doing in 10 years? Well, probably I'll have to find a new job because I will have taught all the people that I know Reiki, and then I won't have anybody else to teach. So, you know, after 20 years, I have different questions now. Like, how did Reiki emerge, it feels like, at exactly the right time in our world community and come forth during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s in the United States, and then instantly spread to the rest of the world. And now, here we are, some 35 years later, and we're doing something that nobody ever dreamed of, which is to talk together and see each other over the internet around the world with people who are also sharing Reiki. So my question is, have we taken Reiki for granted? Have I taken Reiki for granted? And I'd like to think not. Although sometimes I think to myself, well, why don't I use Reiki more in this area of my life? Or why am I so surprised that I feel so great after having a Reiki treatment? And these questions always seem to stay with me. And I don't feel like they're questions that are of doubt anymore, but they're questions about reminding myself where I've been and asking myself, where am I going? What I've noticed over the last year, for instance, is that over Facebook, there are more and more little groups of Reiki students in different countries or spanning different interests in Reiki, like a global group on treatment of animals, for instance, or a global group on the treatment of cancer, and so on. And then there are groups in little towns in Argentina or in Russia or in Kazakhstan or in South Africa, or, you know, all these different places. And it just feels as though the movement now is away from what's Reiki going to do for me to how can we come together and serve the planet? How can we come together and serve our global community? Now, this is a very big generalization, but one of the things that always occurs when I'm in groups is people ask me, well, do we have to organize? Like, do we have to form groups in order to make a difference? Why can't I be independent? And I think, well, it's a very difficult question to answer, actually, because you know, as human beings, we would like to think that we're independent. And we'd like to think that we have control of, and decide for ourselves about our lives. And the more and more I connect in Reiki, the more I understand that I am not really independent in the way that I always felt I was when I was in my 20s and 30s, and felt like I had control over my life, and I was going to decide who I was and what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And then I met Reiki, you know, from my own family. And there was, at first I was resistant, and then I developed partnership with this energy, with this practice. And now I see that independence has a different quality for me. It's not about being this separate world that isn't connected with anybody. It's that I am, as we learn in Reiki, I am both the giver and the receiver. It's really profound, actually, as a part of our practice. And I am both a small fragment of Reiki, and I am Reiki. So I am an individual and I am the whole. And all of these paradoxes work within us to grow us into being more human. You know, I just wonder about this part of us, though, that we call spirit. And though our community really loves to think that we are a spiritual practice and that we connect with each other energetically and spiritually, there is something in us, well, anyway, in me, excuse me, there is something in me that needs to have physical connection, like the telephone. Could I send and have a conversation with somebody by sending them second degree Reiki? Well, of course, I've done that. I've had conversations. However, I have this attachment to hearing the voice through a physical thing. Well, now this physical thing doesn't have any wires, but it's still something to hold on to, right? I've got them in my hand. And and I have this feeling that where Reiki is taking us, where the internet is taking us, where our development as humanity is taking us is to understand that our energy, our spirit, the things that we declare are non-physical are going to become more and more important and more able to be truly a part of our reality. So I've been thinking about this in relationship to a kind of mixed expression, energetic structures. Well, I'm not sure if this is just an oxymoron, which means that it's not possible to have energetic structures because structures maybe are only physical. But I think that there are energetic structures like mandalas, for instance, for me are energetic structures. They create a kind of energy and they bring it to focus. And whether it's the Navajo medicine man making a mandala, what I call a mandala, or a blessing circle with sand, different colors of sand, or somebody with wonderful oil pencils making a mandala on a piece of paper, or looking at the night sky and taking a time-lapse photography photograph and seeing the whirl of the stars as they move through the heavens. All of these are mandalas, and we have mandalas that are inside of us. And I believe that in Reiki, we are creating energetic structures when we treat each other, but also in our coming together, we create these energetic structures. And I believe that we have these everywhere in our society. And I live in the Southwest of the United States, where the Native Americans haven't been moved so much from their homelands and their ancient places. And I feel the land has a different quality here, especially in northern New Mexico, in the Four Corners area, because the natives there are continuing to provide energetic structure for everything that happens, you know, in that landscape. And I was thinking that in going to all these, and I only went to a few of the many temples and gardens, for instance, in the Kyoto area in Japan, that these structures are physical, but they also maintain an energetic structure, not just for Kyoto and not just for the country of Japan, that energetic entity, but for that area of the world. And I believe that's true in all these different places that have this understanding deep down inside as a human being of energetic structures. So, do we need physical kind of structure to come to these energetic structures? Well, that's a question I can't answer. But I do know that our tendency as human beings is to come together in organizations, groups, communities, whatever you call them. And I'm really interested this year to see if these communities will be able to lift figuratively their heads from their own local place, which is like a circle of the individual, then a circle of a group, to our global community and ask the question, how do we serve our fellow man? How do we serve the planet? How do we make a difference? And There are lots of ways of making a difference, as you probably all know. And one of the ways one of the places we can start, I believe, is to really start with ourselves and our own clarity about what we are doing. So there were some questions that were asked by people, and I was kind of puzzled by the reference of these people to some things that I thought, well, does this really fit? But as I worked with the questions more and more, I realized that one of the things that we can do in order to provide foundation for our next step is to become more conscious and more clear about what we are actually doing. Because we all went from being mostly physically based. Do I do it right? Will it go away if I do it wrong? You know, did my teacher teach me the right things so that I can access it? Will I lose the gift? You know, all these questions have to do with a kind of physical world where, oh yeah, we left our sweater, you know, on a bench in the bus station and I will never get it back. But that's not something you can do with Reiki, because we are Reiki. Reiki, universal life energy, it's a part of us. It's what makes us a living being. And what we can leave behind, though, out of disinterest or maybe getting too busy, is our practice. We can leave behind our practice, and then sometimes we forget that we even have a connection to Reiki. And this is the part that is the crucial piece that allows us to develop ourselves in order to make a difference to ourselves, to make a difference to the world, and to those around us. So here's our first question. It's from Cynthia, and it's a pretty long text, so I'm going to read it to you, and I hope you follow the gist. Cynthia says, practicing Reiki, are you meant to be passive, kind, and loving all the time? I do find sometimes in certain situations anger me, and it seems to go against everything I believe in. There is the dichotomy. Reiki is loving and healing as I interpret it, coming from the cosmos, higher consciousness, or whatever you want to call it. But my own feelings, not often, but of late, think about the way hospitals treat their patients with total inhumanity at times, or the way disabled, the elderly, and mentally ill are also treated shabbily. It makes me ashamed to be a human being living on the same planet as those people who profess to be carers. I need your guidance on this. Thank you. One of the things that I come back to is to look around me and to see the natural function of who we are as an organism, as a species of animal on the planet, first of all. You know, one of the things that I don't like very much is how nature is becoming more and more humanized. There's a big word called anthropomorphic, I think, that means that we put human characteristics on something that's not human. So when a tidal wave or an earthquake and a tidal wave happen, you know, the earth in its natural function becomes the villain, you know, the bad person. And it hurts people. And it leads me to ask a question sometimes of Hawaiians who lived in the path of Pele, the volcano, the goddess of lava and fire in Hawaii. And I say, well, why do you live on a volcano? And they say, well, because it keeps me paying attention. I like the energy of it. And if I have to move once in a while, that's how it is. So, you know, human beings, as human beings, we're not always loving. We're not always kind. We're not always perfect. And we definitely are not passive. Even if we think we're passive in our not doing something, we actually set a whole chain of events moving that we have no idea where it's going to end up. So this idea of passive, kind, and loving, that these are good qualities, for me, they're only good if they are also held in the context of being human, which means that I also am angry, impatient, irritated, I pout, I am selfish, I am moved to the depth of my soul by a song and weep with a number of other people. I mean, we have this whole range of emotions and feelings. That is what makes us human. And Reiki supports us in having all of this richness. And so what I find happens in people who have Reiki and do practice is that we find a way to be a very rich human being. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying, okay, it's good to be angry and lash out at somebody else. Well, the other part that Reiki teaches us is how to work with these feelings, how to be with these feelings, and be able to be responsible for our feelings. So this is something that I hope that you, Cynthia, are able to hold. And that because I refer back to being independent, because we are actually have all these different people inside of us, there are times when I lose my compassion and I want all the Mexicans to go home and be treated in their own hospitals rather than in our hospitals in the southern part of the United States. But that's really cruel and very inhumane. I hope that another way to address this issue is that somehow we allow the hospitals a way for them to be able to treat everybody that comes to their doors, whoever it is, and wherever they come from. So I feel that shame has a source in ourselves that is a really great place to start investigating where that shame comes from how we can turn that shame into passion that will actually create a new environment in your own locale or in your own family around this. So Cynthia, I hope that you have some spark of inspiration and understand that Reiki is everything. We are, we're human beings. And the next questions come from Kiyoshi. And I see that he's also written a question on the chat. A little bit of a provocative question. Will Reiki be limited to the treatment table or attunement chair, I assume, in the future? And well, I don't see that Reiki is limited to the treatment table or the attunement chair even now. So I don't think that this is going to happen. And I assume, Kiyoshi, that what you're talking about is, again, concentrating on the physical. This is a Reiki treatment. But what happens if we treat ourselves and we gain more and more of our own peacefulness inside of ourselves, and we go into a group like our family or something, and all of a sudden our family is starting to relate to each other differently? Now, that also can be an expression of the practice of Reiki. And there are lots of these things that I'm talking about that I call energetic structures that we're starting to see the results of, and we become more conscious of them. So we start with the physical world because that's who we are. We're spirits in a physical body. So we start here, and then we move into a deeper and deeper understanding of the practice of Reiki, and it's introducing and developing our awareness of the non-physical parts of our humanity. Will students stay with one teacher or have many teachers? Well, again, I think that that's a totally individual question. What I hope will happen, and this comes from the 90s especially, is that in the 90s, it was discovered that many masters have started to change the system, the form of the system, from what was taught by Hawayo Takada. And, I just know this community, which is the basis of most of the Reiki practice in the world today. And what happened then was that somebody would say, oh, I went to this one teacher and they taught me how to do Reiki this way. And now I see that was wrong and I need to find the right Reiki master. Well, for me, that kind of motivation doesn't address the issue. The issue is, do you practice? Do you feel that you've gained value from this practice? So, if somebody has Reiki that's a different form than mine, but they find value in it, and I see that after 10 years of practicing, that they are developing and growing themselves, then I don't care whether the hand positions are different. I won't change my hand positions to match somebody else's, but neither do I expect them to change their hand positions to match mine, because they have value out of it. And so you know, in Japan and in other parts of the world, people do move from teacher to teacher. But it's not because somebody's right and wrong. It's because on their path, they have reached a certain place where they need to explore another part of themselves. And that part of themselves needs a different mentor or a different teacher. And so to have the motivation that somebody is correct or incorrect, bad or good, right or wrong, this is, for me, non-beneficial motivation. It doesn't benefit the student, and it certainly doesn't benefit the masters, because it just pushes masters into competition. And we shouldn't be in competition. We should be into serving every Reiki student that we come in contact with, whatever that means. So a lot of times when people come to me and say, well, I got the wrong kind of Reiki and now I want the right kind, I tell them, you practice first for a year your form of Reiki without this idea and see what happens. And then you come back to me if you still want to come and be my student. You know, it's so it's not about right or wrong. And those people who go around and what I call collect masters because they think that's more, that's better. That's another non-beneficial motivation, because it means that it means that the student is not enough. They're seeking something that's going to click. But what clicks is through practice. It isn't through the right master. And it isn't through the right accumulation or combination of masters. It's because you have to practice. And when you practice, then you gain what you need. Not what you want, but what you need. So this is very, very different. Some people will have one teacher, one master, one mentor, and that will be fine. And other people will have 10 or 12 because that's their path. So stick to serving yourself on your path. And the next question is, do you foresee Reiki becoming an organized religion or giving birth to one? Well, Kiyoshi, as I said in an earlier webinar, I just see that in the world of religion and religious philosophy, we could really find a home under the title spiritual practice. And I don't believe we have the possibility to become a true religion in the way that it's defined today. And a lot of the qualities that people find in religion, they also find in spiritual practices. So I don't think that we're giving birth to a religion anymore. This question really has been put to rest this year for me, and I'm really happy about that, because it's very, very confusing. Because in my own vocabulary, I felt that what I was experiencing through my Reiki practice were religious experiences. But if I can change and make my words more to the point, I would say that they are spiritual experiences from a human being who is spirit. And that religion is something that has moved outside of this experience. And so I can't call it any more accurately a religious experience. It is like a religious experience. Very, very different. The next question. Pauline, I think it is a good thing we honor our teachers and their teachings and teach as much as we can as we have been taught. Phew. Of course, the teachings have had interpretation by culture, like from Japanese to Western culture, by time, from 1940 until 2015, and of course through language, Japanese to English, and then English to other languages. And what she's talking about, so I'll go on and read the rest. Also, there are now people known in Japan who still practice Reiki. When we discover our practice differs from the way as it is done in Japan, can we, after careful consideration, adjust? Well, according to my own ethic about practice, the first thing I tell students is stick with the practice that you were taught. If you find yourself growing away from this practice and are drawn to another form of practice, then take up that other form without mixing the two and create the wholeness within yourself on your path, as I said before about the teachers. As students, we are given a certain kind of formula that has a certain kind of benefit. And for me, I really see the benefit and am familiar with the way that students work through this particular system that I carry. I don't have a clue how the other forms of practice work within a person, so I can't really give them good advice unless it's sort of much more general, like what I'm talking about now. But what she's really speaking about, and she clears this up later in another lengthy article, is about the principles. So she's from the Netherlands, Pauline, and the masters in the Netherlands, when they were introduced to Reiki, they were introduced to it from, in the beginning, from Inger Droog, who was from Canada, and I know Inger really well, though unfortunately haven't seen her for many years. And she took the principles as they were taught to her by Hawayo Takata. And her master, who was also a student of Hawayo Takata, Wanya Tuan. These were translated then into Dutch. And then they were translated a few years later into Dutch again, and then a few years later after that into Dutch again. And many of the masters in the Dutch community really have their favorite version. And sometimes they have, just done their own after a while. Because as the principles become more than a group of words, they become an experience, then the person who is translating the words can choose a more clear translation because of their own experience. And this has happened in all the languages that the principles have been translated into. And then sometimes people try to go back to the Japanese, which is even more difficult because in my estimation, you have to be Japanese, know the language and know the culture in order to actually translate the culture and the words together. And this, for me, is what I felt Hawayo Takata did beautifully. And it gave us a way to access a very vital part of the culture that we would not have accessed before. So what's happening is that the principles become a living entity that follows the depth and understanding as a student of our own practice. So when I look now at, say, earn your living honestly, well, of course, the first thing I thought of was, I can't cheat people. I can't ask them for more money than I'm supposed to, for instance. But in the Japanese culture, and what I got on my own later, was that honesty is not about the physical piece of asking, for money. It's about, am I asking from the sincere and truthful part of myself that I am going to offer you something that will benefit you, and that this offering comes from sharing myself. And that quality of passion comes out not just in Reiki. I mean, we have so many different heroes in our business world today that demonstrate this: earn your living honestly, be who you are, and know that that is how you are going to earn your living. That's how you're going to be yourself, is to share yourself. And one of the things about living in Santa Fe for a few years when I was just beginning to be a Reiki master is that this city nurtures those people who earn their living honestly. They earn their living by being who they are. If they're a channel, if they're a massage therapist, if they're a businessman, if they're a social worker, the quality of life in Santa Fe back then was be who you are, and you will be able to be supported. And, that's really what this precept is about. So as people begin to understand this, then the translation is more and more different. So there isn't a better version. The version accompanies the student as the student is able to understand it, and it has nothing to do with the words. Really. I mean, I have had recited the same words over and over again for the last 35 years or more, and they become different with each decade. So I hope that this answers your question, Pauline, and if it's more confusing, then write back on the Facebook page. There's another question here from Nirmala. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Is Reiki energy still alive and powerful? Is it safe to give Reiki? Or do we have to take precautions when giving Reiki? Well, of course, Reiki energy is still alive because it is. I mean, this is when our minds have to stretch. So when one says, is Reiki energy alive? We sort of have it the other way around. It's like, I have Reiki and so I am alive. And I hope you understand the difference between these two statements. I am Reiki and so I am alive. And no one, no human being is able to influence Reiki. And no human being is able to distort Reiki or make it different, because it just is. You know, we have the part of this world that I call the absolute, which means that it's just so. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And yes, we can explain that this is how we orbit the sun and how the world turns on its axis and all this. Well, that's the explanation. But it's just so. And it's just so that there is Reiki. It's just so that human beings tend to want to find a way to articulate this power that is greater, obviously, than anything we could ever know or be. Who made the world? Who made us as human beings? This miracle of different systems that come together, work together, and we can't even explain all the ways that it works together. That's how alive we are. And so, of course, it's safe to give Reiki, and of course, we don't have to take precautions. An elderly Japanese man who was a sensei, or a very esteemed teacher of acupuncture, once asked me, what is the limitation of Reiki? And I had to think for a long time, and then I thought, well, there is no limitation in Reiki. The limit is what we are able, or what we think we're able to bear as human beings. So this question comes up for us all the time in different ways. And my suggestion is not to worry about Reiki, the energy, but to be concerned about our partnership with this energy and how we hold out our hand in partnership. And are we really willing to surrender to the partnership? Because that's what the practice of Reiki offers us. And Aura, this is a name, what do you feel is the relation between Reiki and the prevention of cancer and also the curing of cancer? Well, very interesting. I just say this because in the last 2 weeks, I've had a talk with my oncologist, and I had this very big, mind-blowing kind of realization about a piece of denial that I have had going on. And, you know, I was talking to her about the treatment process that I'm in right now. And I said, oh, I just, you know, really want to make it for 5 years and then I'll be finished with this. And she said, no, you know, you have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. You are not going to be finished ever, the treatment. And I went, interesting. How did I not get this? So I immediately called my therapist, my counselor, and made an appointment. And we're going to work on this. And so what I want to say about any disease, any condition of our body, which puts it more into a neutral place, is that Reiki feeds that part of ourselves our path. And a part of our path is to live in a human body right now. And as we grow in our development of our energetic bodies, we understand and hopefully can develop ourselves into actually realizing that we continue on past our physical life here on the planet, and that in the act of being born, we are starting to die. And it's very interesting for me because I think now, well, probably I'm not going to live till I'm 80 because I'm 66 now. So if I live for 5 years more, which is actually a pretty possible, then how do I want to spend my next 5 years of my life? You know, and I could, of course, die, you know, in a year from now from something totally different than cancer. But it's a great process to think about, and this is what I've been doing over the Christmas holidays, is to really be aware that I'm not afraid of calling my body, and whatever's happening in my body, whether it is called cancer or a cold or knock knees or bad teeth or whatever, that's all mine. And I cope with that. That's what makes my life rich. That's what guides my personality, and it's what pushes my spiritual development. So I was talking to another dear friend of mine who's also on the same path with cancer, and we both agreed that this is a path. You know, it is a path that we follow, and we follow it until it is time to surrender to the next big step of our path as a human being, which is to die. And that step in and of itself is a beautiful part of the path. So there is no relationship in the sense of, if I do this, I won't get cancer. If I do this, I will be cured of cancer. I mean, I have people, there are documented cases where people have had stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, have had one Reiki treatment, have had it go away and not come back for years and years and years. I mean, you know, even now. And there are other people who have had exactly the same diagnosis and had many different Reiki treatments and many spiritual processes, and they die, you know, within a few months. Like, why is that? Well, it's not have anything to do with Reiki in the sense of a linear progression. It has to do with Reiki as a part of living and creating this consciousness that this too, living with cancer, is a part of my spiritual path. And everything is a part of my spiritual path that comes to me. So, you know, people ask me, are there certain hand positions? I say no. Are there certain times of day that you should have Reiki? I say no. Have Reiki as much as you can, whenever you can, and however you can. And just go for it, because I believe that Reiki will keep you on your path. And keeping you on your path will get you to the place where you want to go, but you don't actually know you want to get there in that moment. So I've had a wake-up call again. It's a good wake-up call. And I'm just really holding this question that my therapist asked me, which I have until January the 12th, I think, to figure it out. Should I ever figure it out? And that is, right now, what is your biggest fear? And that has to do with me. That is my spiritual path question for the next few weeks. So that is the end of the questions that we had, and it's about time for us to close. But I'm wondering, Rachel, if there's something that has come on the chat that you'd like to share and that I can talk about a little bit.
Yeah, let me pull those up.
Okay.
There is a question from Budwin about, I think, some specification of terms used. He said, in the previous webinar, we spoke about Reiki as a mystic school. Do you see that Reiki practitioners will move more towards this spiritual, mystical school in the future as opposed to hands-on treatment? Also, that the practice will become more and more individual? Yeah.
Well, you know, one of the not great things about words is that it separates things into items, especially English. Because in English, this is a phone and this is a glass with water in it. In some languages, it would depend about what I'm using the water for. That would determine what the word is that they speak for the glass. Is it a container or is it a vehicle for carrying water, right? So in my looking at the practice of Reiki, because when we were given the practice of Reiki from Hawaii Takata, all I got from myself and from those around me were that it was a Japanese healing art. It had to do with healing, physical healing mostly, and that there was nothing else to it. So why couldn't it be taught like massage? Like, what difference does it make what the form was and how much it cost, and why do I have to know who my teacher was, and you know, all this. So and as I grew in my practice, I didn't have answers to those questions in the early 1980s, but toward the late 1980s, what I realized was that this practice held more than just technique. It was a path. And because it was a path, everything that I was taught to get on the path and to stay on the path was a part of my path, like the amount of money I paid, the hand positions, the principles, and I couldn't leave one out because then I wouldn't be honoring what I was given to be tools on my path. And then in the 1990s, when we really started to look at the different aspects of the system and of Reiki at that time, that the recognition that it's a spiritual discipline, that it puts us into always these questions of deciding, okay, am I going to stay on my spiritual path today? Like, am I going to do my treatments? Am I going to say yes to a treatment of somebody else? Am I going to honor as much as I can the precepts or the principles, you know, every day? So this is a part of spiritual discipline. And I saw immediately that in all my first degree classes, those people had a special bond. They did something profound together that they would not have that experience with anyone else. And so because of that, they became a community, a group, a mystic experience of mystic order. And so you can't separate all these. So of course they all are, a part of the whole. So I hope that answers Baldwin's question as much as I got it.
Yeah. Phyllis, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I want to share with you some of what's going on in the chat. It's not exactly questions, but there's a lot of great conversation happening between people about the use of Reiki in hospitals and for different kinds of physical and emotional healing. And I see people from different parts of the world exchanging specific cities or hospitals that allow the practice, which is very exciting. And there is a way that it was worded. I did let the community on the chat know, and I'll let those of you simply viewing us know that there is a program that we have planned in 2016 where we will address the use of Reiki alongside medicine and as treatment with specific diseases and physical ailments. But one way that it was put, let me find it in the chat, that I thought was really lovely was by Todd. He said, how to live well and how to die well as part of my practice, which I felt was sort of an extension of those kinds of topics. And I wanted to make sure that you, Phyllis, heard it and that others hear it. It's very exciting. So that's what's happening right now in the chat.
Great, sounds good. And I can read it now when you talk because I am not talking myself. So that's great.
Okay, great. Would you like me to move on to talking about the next program?
Sure, that'd be great.
Cool. So in 2016, we have Phyllis and I met recently and set out a whole calendar for 2016, and we will make a way for you to view all of that all at once in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for that in our Facebook page. If you're not part of us on Facebook, the best discussions happen there after the broadcast, and it's just Global Reiki Webinars. It's a private group. Look it up, and if you're friends with anyone in the group or myself, we'll approve you and you can join the discussion there. And that's also the first place where I post any registration for any of our programs and any other links that we have for you with information. The big thing, we will continue to do these free broadcasts, and thank you to those of you who have donated during this program. You're always welcome to offer us monetary gifts. We receive them with so much gratitude and appreciation. Those donations can be sent via PayPal to reikiwebinars@gmail.com. And again, thank you to those of you who have donated throughout the program. It supports us to put on these free programs every 6 to 8 weeks. So throughout 2016, we've definitely got those planned. And there also are some opportunities, and we'll share more information with you later on how you can register for experiences like this with Phyllis and myself, where we'll actually cap the number of people and you'll be able to interact more intimately with each other and with Phyllis and myself. So those sort of arc and go along with the themes that we'll be going over in our free broadcasts, just like this one, which we call Global Reiki Webinars. So the next one that we're doing is in February. In many parts of the world, it's February 16th. And it will be 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 10 a.m. Central Standard Time where I am. It's 4 p.m. in the UK. It is 5 p.m. in Amsterdam, 7 p.m. in Moscow, 1 a.m. on February 17th in Tokyo, Japan. So you night owls in that part of the world can join us then. And we'll have information for you sent out. If you're watching us live, you are part of our email list. You'll get a notification as soon as registration for that event opens. And if you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you ask whoever told you about that how they got on that email list, so they can send you some links so that you can opt in and get communication directly from us in the future. Or you can go into the Global Reiki Webinars Facebook group. If you ever want some direct attention or information from me, just go ahead and tag me. That way it shows up in my notifications and I know right away to go and respond to your questions. So if you're watching the replay and it's not actually through Webinar Jam where you opted in and communicated directly with us to let us know that you're with us, go to that Facebook group and let me know that you'd like to be on the mailing list, and I'll send you a way to do that. So thank you so much. We are just about ready to close out. I am seeing some beautiful comments in the chat. Really, thank you all for being with us live and for continuing to share your energy with every single person. Many hands and many lands, many candles, lights that Phyllis shared with us in the beginning. Thank you for being that with us. And yeah, Phyllis, is there anything else you'd like to add before I close us out with Reiki?
Well, I just read a question from Carlos, which I just want to quickly answer. He asked me, what do I envision Reiki practice looking like in 20 years? And you're talking to a traditionalist, so I hope that Reiki practice, your Reiki practice, whatever it is, my Reiki practice is the same as what I'm doing now, because it's been profoundly moving in my life. Why would I want to change it? And I know that it's been profoundly moving in your life, or we wouldn't be together here. So the context, though, and the peripheral vision of what we see as Reiki practice, I believe that's going to widen and grow deeper. And this is very exciting for me because we've spent a lot of time in development of ourselves, and now it's time to take that development and put it to practice. Thanks. And have a glorious 2016 full of laughter and sadness and grief and joy and everything that you can imagine, because that's being alive. Thank you.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, let's close out our time together with Reiki, either self-Reiki or those of you who have a practice of using distance Reiki. I like to send Reiki to our collective highest purpose, and always just enjoy sharing in this experience with you. So just a few moments of Reiki to close the circle. Thank you. it's really tempting for me to want to speak while doing that, because I'm picturing myself on your screen and you just looking at me, and at the same time, I really feel your presence. I feel the totality of our collective. It's really wonderful and unique, and thank you for that experience. Thank you again for being with us. We'll be in touch. Peace, love, and Reiki.
Bye.